Okay, and I think we are live. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me right now. This is a first for me, so I have no idea whether this is working or not. So get active in the chat if you can hear me talking right now, so I know this stream's working and like my audio is not horrific. But yeah, good to see you all. I have no idea how many of you are going to be tuning in, but hopefully there's a decent amount. As I said, this is the first time I've ever done any live streams. So yeah, I don't have the backup of doing 20 different takes to the camera to fall back on. So yeah, it's a bit exciting for me here. And I'm just going to give it a minute or two just while we let some people get into the chat and I can see a few messages start. And until I can see a few messages pop up to see that it is actually all working. Right. Brilliant. Thank you for that in the chat there. Yeah. So hopefully we should all be working right now. So a bit of basic premise of what the point of this stream is. Well, AliExpress reached out because in celebrating my 10,000 subscribers, which is pretty wild, to sponsor a stream where I go through some of their latest and greatest bike products that they sell on the platform and sort of just see what I think of them live. Kind of a bit like one of my sort of taking a look at AliExpress bike product videos, but just doing it live on stream, which is quite exciting, to be honest with you. And I'll be sharing loads of links and discount codes as we go because they have hooked me up with some exclusive discount codes that are pretty good for the stream. So that is all quite exciting for you. Now, the first thing they have asked me to tell you about is the cashback team. So if you want to make sure you get the best cashback you can before the stream, make sure you click the link I've pinned in the chat and join up with my cashback team. The more people that join, the higher the rate of cashback is. So let's all work together and get as many people in the team as possible. So if you do want to purchase anything, just make sure you've joined the team first. And I quite like the cashback feature because, yeah, after you've ordered a product, once they've dispatched it, you get a little bit of extra money in your AliExpress account, which is always good. But it's great to see so many of you. Really, really good. And it's great to see so many people in the chat, which is nice. Throughout this whole thing, if you've got any questions, any Q&As, just fire them up in the chat and I'll try and get to as many of them as I can between all the products. But behind me, I have got an absolute mountain of boxes to get through. They've gone really crazy with the amount of stuff they've sent and we have only got about an hour and a half. So I'm going to try and get through as much as I can, which is really exciting. So yeah, there's going to be loads of discount codes. They are all in the description of the stream. So if you are wondering, you know, there's some global ones, there's some UK ones, and there's some US ones. If you're wondering why it's so late, you know, I'm half asleep right now. But yeah, the reason we're so late is so it can be for viewers in the US as well at a decent time of day, which is always good. So yeah, I think we'll give it a couple of minutes, then we will get started. But yeah, it's good to see you all. It's good to be live for once. I've never done this before, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let me know as well as soon as if there's any issues with any of the stream stuff, just let me know and I'll try and get it fixed as quickly as I can. But yeah, I think I'm going to go get the first thing to have a look at. So we're going to start off with some bike tech kind of stuff. I've kind of grouped this into different groups. But we are going to start off with some bike tech kind of stuff. And the first thing that I'm going to look at is this. Now, I've always been a bit of a skeptic when it comes to bike radars. And to be honest with you, I've never really seen the point of them. But one of the things I am quite excited to try is to see, you know, let's give it a go. We'll see whether it works. We'll see what my opinions of them are. Because some people say, oh my God, bike radars absolutely changed my life. But for me, like, I've always been like, well, I can hear the cars. You know, I don't need something to beep at me on my Garmin. But yeah, this is a nice cheap one from a brand called COOSPO. I think that might be how you say it on AliExpress. And these cost about £50 in the UK at the minute, or in the US, you can get them for just shy of $100. So quite a bit cheaper than Garmin's own one. But yeah, let's take a look and see what it comes with in the box. Now, in theory, I have a setup where you can see my desk. Ooh, maybe not. That did work earlier. Let's see, there we go. You can see the desk as well as my camera. So yeah, let's get it open and have a look. Oh, some people saying the cashback link's not working. I'll try and post that again in a second. So, first things first in the box. What are we getting? So you've got some accessories, charging cable, little lanyard strap, and a little mount to go on the bike. So that could be quite useful, as obviously it uses, there we go, or actually on the top-down camera, uses a quarter-turn mount, which is always quite nice. And then we have got the radar itself in here. And there you go. Looks kind of like most of these rear tail light radars. It is, yeah, quite a smart little unit. I imagine this is going to be blindingly bright if I turn it on. It might not have any charge, but it wouldn't be one of my videos if we didn't have the scales on the desk. So let's see what it weighs in at then. And what are we looking at? So 64.3 grams, that's not too bad. I mean, when you take into account the mount as well, you're looking at just shy of 100 grams, which I think is pretty reasonable. It's about the same as any other bike light, so that's pretty decent. As I said, I've never really used a radar before. I've been playing around with a couple of cheap radars, and they do all work. Like, I've not had any problems. I've actually used this radar before, and it does work fine. I've not had any issues with detection, but yeah, I'm still, jury's out on my opinions on them and whether I think they're personally useful, but I can really see why maybe someone who's new to the sport and is quite nervous around cars, it is quite nice to know something's approaching, especially, you know, with electric cars these days. Yeah, you can't always hear them the easiest. So yeah, I'm going to put this to one side and we're going to have a look at what's next, because I am mindful of just how long I'm taking on each little thing. So next up, to go with that COOSPO little radar, I've got one of their computers as well. So we're going to take a look at this one, and these currently cost just £62, which I have to say, you know, quite a lot cheaper than Garmin's out there. I generally use an Edge 840, which, yeah, that costs quite a bit of money. So this has got a nice, it's got a colour screen in fact. So for 60 quid, that could be pretty decent. I'm going to see if this one's got any battery. I don't know how well I'll be able to actually use these. There's some products that I'll be able to show a little bit better on camera later on. I think some of this tech stuff, yeah, again, seems to be out of battery, but looking on the weights, about 70 grams, pretty decent. And you even get a little screen protector included, how nice. As well as a sort of classic rubber band mount, which, you know, could be pretty useful. So yeah, rubber band mount in the box. And to be honest with you, for about 60 quid for a basic bike computer, you know, even if all it does, it can do full maps navigation. So, you know, yeah, even if it is a bit clunky, you know, if you can't afford a Garmin, could be a really good option. So I will get to a bit of a question in the chat before we go on to the next product. I've just seen someone asking, you know, what's my opinion on the Weaver's disqualification for a bike that's too light. I mean, I think genuinely 6.8 kilos is a bit high for a weight limit these days, considering, you know, how easy it is to build a bike well lighter than that. And, you know, I don't think it's a safety reason, especially in the women's races where, you know, most women aren't 6'2" or, you know, bigger, like, you know, 85 kilo male sprinters. So the fact they've got the same weight limit's a bit ridiculous. However, you know, there are rules. You know, if you break the rules, there should be a consequence. But I don't think disqualifying a rider is the right way about it. You know, the mechanic should have a fine maybe, but kicking her out the race on stage 1 for a bike that's 20 grams too light, I think that's a bit ridiculous, to be honest with you. I think they could have done a bit of a better job there. But yeah, so that's the COOSPO computer. But actually, they've sent me another bike computer from a brand called GEOID as well. And now this one, I am really quite excited about, because I hadn't actually realised this, but on a video I posted about ThinkRider power meter, one of my viewers left a comment saying GEOID are actually just part of Magine. And now Magine are obviously quite a well-known brand for bike computers and power meters and all the rest. And I didn't realise that, and I did a bit of looking up, and no, that is true, that GEOID are kind of their sub-brand. A lot of like phone manufacturers do this where they have a budget brand as well. So yeah, this is actually, and I think this is a rebadge of one of Majine's computers, but honestly, quite a lot cheaper is this GEOID badged version. And this just costs just shy of 70 quid with my codes. So yeah, let's have a look what you're getting here. This looks quite a premium device, honestly. So loads of stickers and screen protectors in there. And this is a bit bigger than that COOSPO one. And for only a few quid more, this looks really smart, actually. This feels proper premium. Obviously, you can't feel it on camera, but it's got what feels like a glass screen to it. You know, this feels easily as nice as my Garmin's. In terms of charging ports, we're on USB-C charging, which I love to see. Garmin took forever to get to that point. And we've got a nice colour touchscreen. Now, I'm not going to be able to have time to activate it and set it up here, but any of these products, if you would like to see a bit more in depth about going forward, let me know in the comments and I will make sure to try and get as many in-depth reviews of these products as possible. I mean, I've got so much stuff to look at that it might take a while for me to get around and review everything here. But yeah, this is really smart. And it uses a quarter turn mount that does actually appear with these little screws on it to be replaceable. I mean, at 60 quid, I don't know whether many people are fixing the quarter turn mounts, but it feels really well made. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to do a proper review on this because at 60 quid, that could be an incredible Garmin alternative. And the quality of the screen is easily as good. I mean, I'm only looking at the little QR code, but seems easily as good as any Garmin I've got. So yeah, really excited to check that one out. And I'm going to quickly throw it on the scales. So here we're looking at about 100 grams there. So 105 grams for that, which is in ballpark with a Garmin. I've got one right here, my Edge 840. So that's about 20 grams lighter, but yeah, similar sort of size. In fact, the GEOID's got quite a bit of a bigger screen. So it could be good if you want a computer for mainly navigation purposes. So yeah, quite nice there. Have a look if anyone else has got any comments. Oh yeah, and you get a little rubber band mount and a wrist strap and a little elastic lanyard in there as well, which is always nice. And that's about it. They also sent over, you can get these bundled with them, the out front mount, the proper out front mount. Most of my bikes these days have got integrated bars, so they've got built-in mounts, but it's always nice to have one of these. And this thing I think is pretty lightweight from the box. Yeah, it's a pretty bog standard lightweight one, but feels pretty solid and well built there. And it's got a little GoPro mount underneath, which I always like considering I have to film my rides a lot. I always like having a built-in mount on there. So that's pretty neat, you know. So this one was just 68 quid. I will leave, they are all linked in the description below. So if you want links to any of these products, have a look in the description. And yeah, I genuinely think this is the way to go, to be honest with you, with these computers. This one does feel, for only a few quid more than the COOSPO, this one does feel really high quality. But obviously the build is not the only thing that matters with these things. It's how it performs out on the road. So I am going to really look forward to doing a full review on this coming on the channel shortly. Right, and I think we are just about ready to move on from sort of bike tech kind of stuff. And we will be moving on to some more components. Yeah, I don't know about that, about the not recording uplift settings. That's definitely a question for a full review. I definitely don't have time to dig in that now, but yeah, I don't know. It's not something I've ever done. I don't think I've ever been on a lift on a bike. You know, I'm not really a downhill mountain biker, but yeah, it'd be interesting. I reckon a lot of these companies now are probably going quite aggressive on the trying to get as many features in there, but a link separately to the radar hanger. I actually don't know if they sell it on its own. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of people on AliExpress selling pretty good radar mounts, but the one I've got was just bundled in the box with that radar, so I don't know if it is something you can buy. But if you look on AliExpress for COOSPO radar mount, I'm sure either they sell one or a million other companies will be making equivalent things. Yeah, so next up, I've got a few products from a brand called ONIRII, which I've actually used some of their stuff before. So, first things they've sent me some of their brake rotors. And now I'm always a big fan of cheap brake rotors. I do not understand why. I mean, as somebody who has bought Dura-Ace rotors before, I've bought, 50 quid Dura-Ace rotors. I don't understand why anyone would spend that money, honestly. As someone who's used, the really expensive stuff and the dirt cheap stuff, I generally find, unless you're doing really long descents where them cooling pins matter, there's not much difference. Now, some of the really cheap rotors can be quite thin, but these seem to be pretty well put together, actually. So they are a sort of a two-piece design where you've got an aluminium little spider with a steel brake track around them. And of course they are Centerlock, but I did look before and they do make a 6-bolt version as well. So they do look pretty good. And I've got double 160s, as these will be going on a gravel bike, but you could get them in 140 as well. So yeah, if you whack them on the scales, these are weighing in at just over 100 grams, 103 grams without the lock ring. When you add in that lock ring, we're at about 110. So for a 160, we're talking only probably about 10 grams heavier than an actual Dura-Ace rotor, which, considering I think these cost less than 20 quid each, they might even cost less than that actually. Let me just have a look. I have got what everything costs written down beforehand. So yeah, for a pair, you can get these for 30 quid. So for £15 a rotor, we're talking like 105 price. But yeah, really quite lightweight and well made. If we have a look, I know some people are a bit concerned about how thin these rotors are with these cheap ones, but they do look pretty hefty. And if I get the calipers out, you're looking at just shy. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't know if it's going to focus that close, but we are just shy of 2 millimeters. So that's reading about 1.9 on my calipers. So yeah, really, really nice rotors. But the other ONIRII product I've been sent, I am even more excited for. And that is a set of their pedals. And these are really cool. So these pedals are only about £40 and somehow are lighter than Dura-Ace pedals. And like, the specs are just crazy on these things. They use a titanium axle, and just picking them up, these are feathery light, a fully composite body, and these are a Shimano SBD style pedal. So they use SBD style cleats. You could use genuine Shimano cleats. You could buy some cheap cleats yourself. But when you see these on the scales, you'll realize just how wild these are. So one pedal, 96 grams. And for the other pedal, yeah, together we're talking 192 grams, which is just madness. Yeah, I just can't believe how light these are. And I do want to try and get these on the hill climb bike. The only thing is, I've always been a Lucchio user, so I'm going to have to set some shoes up with some SBD cleats in order to properly test these out. But I do have an old pair of shoes, and I have used their steel axle versions, and they were working really well. Now they do use sealed, sort of weather sealed bearings, which mean they don't turn all that freely, which some people really like, some people really don't like. They should be a bit more durable because of that, but it does mean they can be a bit more of a faff to clip into when you're using them. Other stuff you get in the box, you do get a pair of sort of Shimano style cleats, so I will be using these. Who knows how good quality they are. They look like pretty much a knockoff of Shimano cleats, but you can get these everywhere. And if you want to buy proper Shimano cleats, you could do. And a big bag of hardware to mount them on your shoes. I honestly think they're probably better off going with a Shimano. Give these a try, see if you like the system, and then if you like them, get some Shimano cleats to go with them. But yeah, I don't know, has anyone else used them? And yeah, looking in the chat, I'm assuming these bike computers are pretty weather resistant. They've all got little covers over the charging ports. I would assume they're pretty decent. I mean, I'm sure if they're not weather resistant, you'll see in the reviews on AliExpress, people will be calling them out, because I can't imagine anyone buying a bike computer and not taking it out in the road. So yeah, the standard ones do possibly have a shorter axle than Ultegra pedals. Now, personally, I use quite narrow Q factors because I've got quite narrow hips, but they do make an extended version. I think that's only the titanium ones though, but given the price difference, I almost always, I wouldn't really see the point of using I wouldn't see the point of not buying the titanium ones. They're not that much difference in price. And if you're going to buy ultralight carbon pedals, come on, you want the lightest ones possible, don't you? So yeah, I mean, yeah, for the price of, I guess, what is, you know, not even 105 pedals, and they look really nicely made. You've got decent tension, and they've got a little adjuster on the tension. I'm really quite happy there. Yeah, as someone's just commenting as well, apparently the bearings are easily maintainable. They've got, I mean, I'm not going to start taking them apart now, but they have got something to get your spanner on to undo them. So you should be able to repack the bearings quite easily. But yeah, they look really nice. Oh yeah, these are, I mean, currently with the codes, you should be able to get these for about £40 in the UK or $40 or so in the US. Just to add, all the prices I'm quoting are ones that AliExpress have sent me. I haven't doubled, and these were created a couple of days ago. On AliExpress, prices change every 5 seconds sometimes. So these might be slightly different to what they were when this document was created. But if you use all the codes that are linked in the description, you should be able to get it down to this price. And if not, it'll only be a few quid different. And sometimes there's loads of different variants. So just make sure you're checking the correct variants. Right. And what time are we doing? What is the best lightweight power meter and crank combo? Well, I will be talking a bit about lightweight cranks and power meters later on. But yeah, obviously you've probably seen my video about the Think Rider power meter. I know that they are flawed. I know if you go over about 800-900 watts, they can start to drift, and that drift will happen until you reset it, do a zero offset. But yeah, I think they're under 70 quid now. So I really think it's quite hard to beat, and I can see why, you know, I'm going to be using them. So yeah. Anyone else got, yeah, as I was saying, all the links and prices are in the description there. Right, so the next thing, I have got a lot of products, all very similar, from a brand that I have featured on the channel before, and that is RYET. So they have sent me a mountain of different styles of RYET saddles, all to check out on the stream. So I have got various different types to have a look at and see what I think. So it's a bit of a mystery. I don't know which one's which. I have seen which ones are being sent first, but I'm going to go through. I'm going to save that one for last because I do know which one that is. That's the most exciting one. So first things first, we have got one of their, I think this is probably one of their more sort of classic designs they've made, this kind of honeycomb mesh saddle. And one thing I like that RYET have done, I've had some of their earlier saddles and I've had some of their more recent ones, and the more recent models, they've started like putting a coating on the top of where all the sort of honeycomb stuff is. As on the older sort of early gen 3D printed saddles, I found them to be really abrasive, but these new ones are a lot better and a lot more comfortable, and you don't rub on your shorts as much because they've got this coating. Now, I'm not sure this is going to suit me all too well because it's quite a wide style saddle, but if you are someone that likes a wide saddle, it could be really good. It's a full carbon construction, so it should be pretty light when I get these on the scale. Yeah, just 162 grams. And now if you know anything about the weights of the 3D printed saddles, they always are quite a bit heavier, and especially for a wide saddle, you know, that's a really decent weight, and in the sort of ballpark that some of the big name brands like your Physique saddles or your Selle Italias come into. Yes, it's not as light as the sort of just the what do you call it, like foam padded EVA saddles, but for a 3D one, that is pretty decent. And yeah, I agree. When the sort of next generation of these cheap power meters come around, you know, I think it's game over almost for some of these brands like SRM and stuff, because like it's just crazy that you can get them so cheap. And if you see what brands like XDS are doing on their stock bikes, specking power meters on $2,000 bikes out in the US, I think that's going to be where it's going down the line. Oh, that core video, yeah, that's got a lot of people in. And yeah, that Chinatown forum, if anyone is curious on, you know, what's decent and what's not, that the guys over there are usually the first to be chatting about, you know, is a product any good, is a product any bad? That's always one to be looking out for. You know, if I'm going to buy something on AliExpress, generally I'll have a look and see what people think about it there, as, you know, it's a really good place to ask people about. And yeah. Right, next saddle, let's have a look at this one. Ooh, this one, it must be a more premium one because they give it you in a little drawstring bag. I've got a few of these bags now from the amount of these RYET saddles I've got. So, oh, this one, I think this is a bit of a sort of specialised style one, I think. I'm not sure. They are a bit naughty with some of the designs, and some of them are a bit close to other people's designs, let's just put it that way. But this has, again, that nice finish on the top of the mesh, except for in the pressure channel, and it has got a covered pressure channel here. But some people do like these style of channels, as, you know, you don't get any sort of spray up from the road. I've used the sort of full open cutaway saddles a lot, and you do sometimes on a really wet day get spray coming up through the middle of the saddle, which isn't always the most pleasant experience. But yeah, it's another really wide one. They do make a lot of quite wide saddles, and I think that probably is just because a lot of people want them at the minute. However, the nose is pretty narrow and it's your typical sort of short fit design. I can already feel it's a bit heavier than the other one, but it is a pretty chunky saddle, and yeah, exactly 200 grams on the dot. But we do have something a bit lighter. And now this is the one I knew about from the start. This one I am quite excited about, because this one, unlike that one being a bit of a rip-off, I think this is actually quite one of their designs. And I saw this one being crazy, crazy lightweight. Now, unlike all the 3D ones, this has got very, very minimal padding, but this is definitely meant to be sort of for hill climb racing, which, if you watch any of my racing content, you'll know I absolutely love hill climb racing, and it is something I do most weeks, to be honest with you, at this time of year. But this has such a weird design to it. If you have a look underneath, it's kind of all one piece. A lot of saddles, if I get this one here, have like a bonded rail when they're a full carbon design into the shell. Whereas on this one, it's kind of all molded as one continuous piece into the shell there, and same in the nose. I've never seen anything like that before in a saddle. It's really interesting. I wonder, I'm not really sure what that is aiming to achieve. I assume it's lighter and hopefully a bit more durable. I guess all being made out of one piece of carbon rather than bonding multiple parts together should be a bit more durable. But let's see what it weighs, because this thing feels very light. And yeah, we're under 100 grams. For context, my sort of favorite saddle of choice, the SLR Boost, which is a mind-blowingly expensive saddle. I mean, I think they cost, on sale, you can get them just under 200 quid. They're about 110 grams. So this thing is lighter. Now, who knows how comfortable it'll be. I mean, the SLR Boosts are crazy comfortable. But yeah, I'm not too fussy when it comes to saddles, when it comes to padding density at least. So I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to throw it on the hill climb bike and see how I feel. I'm racing on Friday, so I'll give it a race on Friday and see how it feels to race on, really. You don't spend much time in the saddle when you're racing hill climbs anyway, so I'll take some of it as light as possible. Yeah, I don't know how uncomfortable it's going to be. I'm going to have to try it and see, but yeah. Right. I hope we're all enjoying it, and I hope I'm not rambling too much. When I'm making a video normally, I can obviously cut down loads of this rambling, and you get the best sort of 2 or 3 minutes of me talking about a product. But yeah, when I'm trying to do this live, it's always a bit interesting to do. So yeah, they were all them RYET saddles. Now they do vary in price quite a bit. With the most premium ones, you know, they do push up to about sort of 80, 90 pounds at times, but they do make some really cheap ones. So for example, I'm not actually sure which one's which, but I think these ones you can get for around 40 pounds. Whereas the more premium lightweight ones, like your one here, I think this is about 50 quid. And this one here goes for currently £60 when you've got the codes. in action. What I am going to do is I am just going to post the codes in the description, in the chat as well for you all, just so you have got them all. Let me just get the codes back up on here, because a lot of these codes are actually sort of exclusive for this stream, and they are apologies, it's just taking me a while to get these. I did have them. Here we go. So I have got a whole load of exclusive codes. Now, they are technically first come, first served. So I don't know quite how many of these codes they are. So I would recommend, if you do want to use them, I can't post that many characters in a chat message at once. I'll post them one at a time. So the global codes aren't quite as good as the UK and US codes. So if you are in the UK or the US, make sure you are using the region specific codes, because you will get a slightly better deal. So I'll post the global codes first, and then we will have a look. We'll get the other ones. It turns out I can't post that many characters either. Great. These are all in the description if you want them anyway. Yeah, right. I'm going to say go to the description to get the codes, because I can't actually post that many characters in the chat, unfortunately. Yeah, and as it's been mentioned in the chat, the links are exclusive discounts. So if you make sure you use the links in the video description to get the prices I mentioned, because I think some of them they've managed to negotiate some extra discounts on. So yeah, just make sure you use them. And as I said at the start, for any of you who've missed it, there is also the Cashback team. I'd strongly recommend, it doesn't cost you anything. Get yourself joined up to that before you buy anything. If you want to get some extra money back when you shop on AliExpress, they give you it depends on how many people join, but the more people that join, it can get all the way up to 10% cashback, which I think every time you spend money on AliExpress, getting 10% back as credit is always pretty decent. Right. The next couple of products, it might go a bit more in depth on. So next up, I've got something that you will have seen on the channel before, and it is one that you all saw on a video before, but I didn't actually on that video go into much depth about the crankset. So this is, of course, the slightly controversial ThinkRider PP5 that you may have all seen me make videos on in the past. And now this is a different one to the one I had for that video. This is another one I've been sent. And this comes with the carbon crankset. And I wanted to show sort of what the crankset's like and a bit about the installing, really, because I think, honestly, it's so underrated, the crankset that it comes with. So it uses a dub axle, and this is a 1675 crank length. But they are really lightweight and well made. So this is the crank itself, and I really, really like the sort of finish on the carbon. And it uses the sort of SRAM style preload collar with a dub axle, so 29mm. So make sure you've got a BB that suits that. They do now make a standard 24mm variant as well. And then this is your drive side crank, which uses a cinch mount. I've realised I am on the wrong shot. It uses a cinch mount, so that threads on. It's got a little protective sticker over it. And that's how you're going to mount the power meter. And then this is the power meter itself. And now when I showed it in my video, as I said, it weighs about 110 grams. Obviously, there will be a slight little bit of variation from model to model, but look at this one. Yeah, 109.0. So 109 on the dot. So that's what they weigh in at. And it uses this standard kind of pin connector that you see on a lot of these Chinese power meters now, which magnets on really nice and easily to charge it. Now, again, as I said in my video about it, I always prefer, non-proprietary chargers, but these things are everywhere. I've got a whole drawer full of them now from the amount of power meters I've got that all use the same charging pins. So I don't think they're all the same model, but Yeah, on that GP Llama review, now, if you want something for sprinting, they do have a tendency to drift if you are sprinting. But from my testing, I mean, I've not gone above 800 watts with one. I'm not a sprinter. I very much climb at, 300 to 400 watts, long steady state efforts on them, but I haven't managed to cause any drift. And I raced a UCI gravel race on these where I came in the top 30 at the Gralloch and didn't manage to cause any drift in the entire race. It was working really well by the end. So yeah, I mean, as long as you go into it knowing that it has that limitation, and you might not know if you have caused it to drift until you zero it, which could be not ideal in a race scenario. But as I said, from actually my real world usage of it, I haven't really found it to be a problem. And yeah, I've used it for loads and loads of training rides and not had any issues. In terms of the cranks themselves, so they use an 8mm to tighten them, and it is a dub standard, but we're going to see what they weigh. So for both cranks together, you're looking at just 328 grams, which, considering this whole setup here is only going to cost you, I mean, they're saying they've managed to net an exclusive price of £169, or I don't know if that's right. It's saying $102. I imagine that is for the aluminium version, but if that's true, that's ridiculous. But for £169 for this whole crank set, including a power meter, I mean, you pay more than that for the cranks alone. These are ridiculously good. Yeah, and I really like the cranks. I've been racing them on my gravel bike. Who knows whether they're actually rated for gravel, but I've not had any problems. I've done several events on them now. Some pretty good placings. I was 5th fastest round the Dirty Reaver, and yeah, top 30 at the Gralloch on these cranks. So I really can't complain, and I think they look really nice on the bike. If you watch my bike build of my sort of cheap Chinese gravel bike, I use these cranks on there, and yeah, it's really, really smart. So I will put these to one side, and I had a question about camera setup. So the camera you can see me on out the front, that is an Insta360 Ace Pro 2, and the top down camera is a GoPro Hero 13. I'm using a bit of a mix and match just because it's easier with the streaming software to not be using two of the same brand's camera. But everything else on the channel is generally shot with Insta360 or with just my iPhone 16 Pro. The GoPro is the top down camera I'm currently pointing at, and the Insta360 is the one of my face. And yeah, on the drift, as I said, from my riding, I haven't once caused it to drift, but I haven't been sprinting on it. And even if I could sprint, I'm not a sprinter, I'm a climber, and I do not have a very powerful sprint. Despite, I can ride at 350 watts for the best part of an hour, but I can't sprint to save my life. So there you go. But as I said, keep dropping questions in the chat, and yeah, have a look at that link. I will go get the link to that, because that is actually crazy. I didn't realize just quite how cheap they've managed to get them. At that price, I might be buying myself another set. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it is £170 in the UK. It's wild. As I said, for the cranks alone, even if the power meter wasn't any good, that'd be brilliant. And for the US price, I can't see the US price because I am in the UK, but US viewers, you'll have to let me know what the price is in the US, because if it's anything like that UK price, that is ridiculously good. And I think you can excuse it not being great for sprinting at that point. Right. And now, my next product almost falls apart with just how good value them cranks are, because the next thing I have to look at, and I'm just checking what time I'm on, brilliant, is I have a Z-Race crank set. And now this Z-Race crank set, I was quite interested in, and partially I was quite interested in before I tried the PP5 cranks, because I wanted to get a cinch mount crank set. And there don't seem to be a whole load of really cheap ones on AliExpress. There's quite a lot of stuff for about 200 quid, but this one is quite a bit cheaper. So These cranksets currently you can get for just over £100. So they're £110 in the UK, and they appear to be, so they were $180 and you can get them for about $150 in the US. So taking a look at these cranks, so they are a carbon crankset and they do use the cinch mounting standard. So in the box, now the version I've got is coming with a double chain rings. You can get it with a direct mount single chain ring as well. So it comes with a nice cinch spider. It's quite a nice shaped one. I hope that looks like it will profile quite nicely on some chain rings there. Pretty lightweight. So spider, 55 grams, so pretty much what most spiders weigh in at, unless it's a crazy light carbon thing. And then other stuff we get in the box. You've got one of the cranks. You've got some nice chainring bolts in there. And then we have got what I assume is the non-drive side crank in there, all wrapped up in what seems to be cling film. This might be a bit of fun to try and get it all off. I seem to remember them Core wheels came with similar packaging to this. It's like a kind of cling film like thing to protect them. I would have preferred a bit of bubble wrap. God, it's going to take me ages to get off. I might have to get some scissors. God, they do make it well packaged. While I'm doing this, has anyone got... Do I trust cranks with a 24mm aluminium spindle? I have some of the... Oh, what brand are they? I do have a set on my hill climb bike, and they're actually on there at the minute. Do I trust them? I think they work. I've not had any problems. But would I buy them now? You know, a few years ago, they were, you know, probably one of the only options for the really lightweight, cheap cranks. But I think the market's moved on quite a bit since then. And like, as you'll see, you know, you can get far, far better stuff for quite similar money now that either has a dub axle, and you're watching me struggle to get this unpackaged, or Pinnack. Yeah. I would like to see a bit more sustainability. I have noticed actually quite a bit of brands are starting to improve their packaging. And I think generally brands are sort of really upping their game when it comes to their packaging. But as you can see here, this is ridiculous. Half the stream is now just going to be me trying to open these cranks. They don't make it easy. Oh. Maybe this was a sneaky ploy for Z-Race to try and get slightly more airtime on the stream. I might have to come back to this. It's honestly, I've never seen packaging like this. I mean, I'm sure it's doing a great job of keeping it protected, but there we go. Maybe I should have done that to start with. Flipping heck, it's hard to get off. There we go. That's what I needed to have done. I don't know. A master's degree in computer science, but I can't figure out how to open a packet. Have we got any? Have I tried? No, I've seen that. I can't say. I don't know how to pronounce that brand, but I have seen them cranks. And oh my God, look at the mess I'm making here. I've seen them. They're one on my radar for things to try. I've never tried them myself. I've got, honestly, at the minute, I'm having to kind of pause on all the stuff I'm buying really, because I end up with almost too much stuff. Yeah, I've got quite a few builds in the works, but yeah, you only need so many cranksets, and I've ended up with slightly too many at the minute. So I have had to sort of slow myself down because I get very carried away with buying this stuff, and I get told off for the amount of parcels arriving at the house at the minute because it is pretty non-stop. Right, finally, the non-drive side crank. We're at 196 grams, whilst I unpackaged the drive side crank, and I've really made a mess of this one. I'm going to get some scissors. No idea where they are. Right, let's get a knife to cut this off because this has actually defeated me. I'll try and be careful and not damage it. I never thought I'd be defeated by unpackaging a crankset. There we go. Whew, that was a workout. So, 330 grams for these cranks, which I think, honestly, yeah, they definitely could use a bit more plastic wrap on them, couldn't they? That was ridiculous. So yeah, 330 grams. So actually, that is the same weight as them Think Rider cranks, and they use a very, very similar style of mounting mechanism because they are a cinch mounting, which means on all of these cheap cinch power meters, I now have another crankset to test them with, which is really going to be quite useful. And yeah, these are in 165mm in theory. Yeah, they are 165mm length. That's what I asked for, which I have been getting really into using 165 recently. Yeah, and they are really, really nice. So if you want to have a look at them, I will put the link to these in the chat. I'm going to try and remember to do that. If I forget to post any links, just shout at me in the chat and I will post a link to them. So the link, ooh, I've just opened the link. There we go. So these are the cranks that I'm talking about right now. If you want to take a look at them, they use a 29mm aluminium axle, and yeah, they're really smart. And the best part of it is you can use these with the cheap power meters that you see out and about on AliExpress. So if you did manage to get a really good deal on just a standalone power meter, you could throw it on to these cranks. So if I take the PP5 and I want to, let's say I bought it when they were on sale for about 65 quid the other day, and I want to throw it on these, you can just unscrew it and it should, if I've read the spec sheet correct, line up on there. There you go. And then you just lock that down with a tool and tighten it on. And yeah, they look pretty smart. I've always been a sucker for these sort of nice sort of carbon finishes. And as you can see, like where you can see the raw sort of carbons underneath, I think they look really quite smart then. And especially considering how light they are, I think these might end up on the hill climb build at some point. There we go. You'll have to let me know what you think on these. I think the price, honestly, is pretty decent for them. And as always, they've got the sort of, I actually don't, they have a removable lock ring on this side, but the axle doesn't seem to be removable. So I don't think it is a replaceable axle. I was going to say I thought the axle was replaceable, but I think it's all one piece here and it's just a non-drive side that you can take out. But you can replace the preload, well, tightening bolt. That's not the preload really, is it? The preload's on there. But you can replace that bolt if you have, that'll be just a cassette lock ring tool. You can take that out and get the bolt out if you ever needed to adjust it. What time is it? So yeah, you'll have to let me know. I could see going either way with them cranks. Them Z-Race cranks are quite nice, but I was a real fan of them Think Riders. And considering they're the same weight, I guess if you were to buy the Z-Race cranks, which are, yeah, £110, and then you buy a standalone PP5, you are talking a similar kind of money. So I can see the argument either way if you want them. And yeah, I mean, the Z-Race cranks, just to say, I forgot about this, did actually include a set of chain rings as well. So because, I don't know, I felt like it, I asked for 5339s because I've actually not got any 5339s and I wanted a set of 5339s. So these came with a set of 5339 nice aluminium chain rings. They seem to have pretty good profiling, and I found, actually, I used to always be of the opinion that anything that's not a Shimano chainring is pretty rubbish, but I've actually found a lot of these cheap AliExpress double chain rings. I've always loved the one buys, but I've found a lot of these cheap double rings now perform really well. I was using a set of Goldix chain rings to do a TT on the other day because I needed a 5440, and genuinely I couldn't tell you they weren't my Dura-Race rings. They were working really well. So these things look pretty much just as good, so I can't see why they wouldn't perform really well. And yeah, I mean, 110 quid for a set of ultralight cranks with a spider and chain rings. That's such a good price. Now, the only problem with weighing these chain rings is you often turn my scales off because they're metal, but the rings themselves, you won't be able to see that very well. 123 grams for the big ring, and then adding the little ring in, and we're at 168. So for the whole crank set put together, I've lost the spider, we are looking at, like I said, when my laptop screen's just gone off. Apologies, I just seem to have turned my laptop screen off. I just need to double check. Is the stream still working? Yeah, it appears to be. Okay, good. Just checking I hadn't knocked. So yeah, for the whole crank set, we are currently looking at just, there we go. Sorry about that. We're currently looking at 555 grams. Sorry, you can't see it. If I just rejig that ever so slightly, I don't think you can see it on there. 555 grams for a £110 crank set with chain rings. I mean, yeah, good luck getting a Shimano one that cheap. I mean, you might get a 105 one that weighs nearly 800 grams, but yeah, that's pretty incredible in my book, considering how cheap it is. You have to let me know in the chat what's your favourite thing I've looked at so far, because to be honest with you, it seems a long time ago I was looking at these bike computers. Yeah, there's been so much stuff I've been looking at, and now I have got still quite a few more things to go, and I have got one extra little bonus thing that I hadn't originally planned, but it is an AliExpress product that has just turned up today. So I thought I'd take a little look at this, and this is some CSC wheels that you see right behind me. And now these are also available on AliExpress, and I think in the summer sale currently these are £270, which for a set of carbon wheels is pretty decent. Now, I have no clue about the specs of these wheels. I can look on the product page, but they have just mystery sent me them. So I'm going to open the box up and have a look at what we get. I'm going to put it that way around so I don't advertise my dress to the world. So in the box, and apologies, I'm just going to swap camera angles so you can see. There we go. We've got a little bit of packaging and we've got some wheels. Now these, yeah, 260 quid. These are pretty much about as cheap can be for carbon wheels. So we've got the rear wheel here. These are just simple steel spoke wheels that use pillar spokes, as I've just checked. And I have got an HG ratchet hub. I'll just put that one down. So that was the rear wheel. And then we've got the front wheel in here as well. I'm actually really curious to see just how light these wheels are. They feel all right. And for 260 quid, yeah, we'll see if they're any good. I'm gonna have to do a lot of tidying up afterwards. And there you go, that is the front wheel. They use quite a nicely made hub there. I mean, it's pretty standard AliExpress kind of wheel set, but for the price, that is really good. I will link these in the chat in a second. They are not in the description because, yeah, I've just had these come myself. They come with some standard sort of fabric rim tape. Won't be using that. But they do also come with some proper tubeless tape as well, which is always nice when they include it because it's the right size for your rims and it means you don't have to go shopping for other stuff. And then nice they include some spare spokes and nipples. It's always nice when they do that, especially like when it's spokes you might not be able to get hold of easily. Yeah, I've never used anything from CSC before. That's all we've got in the box there. So I'm really excited to see how good their wheels are, because I've noticed on quite a lot of wheel videos I've done in the past, people commenting, you know, have you tried CSC wheels? So, and I think these have been around since like really early days AliExpress stuff. And yeah, let's see what they weigh. So this might be a bit tricky to do on the desk. I'm going to swap down to the top-down camera and I'm going to see if I can get it to fit on my scales without bumping into anything. Right, you're not going to be able to see this too well, but the front wheel is 617 grams. So that's looking pretty decent. And let's see if I can stack the rear on top. So when we put the rear wheel in as well, this is always a fun game, trying to balance the wheels. We are at 1,344 grams, which, well, I saw when I looked at the product page earlier, 1,350, and I was like, there's no way a pair of 270 pound wheels is going to be 1,350 grams, but wow, yeah. 1,350 grams for a set of wheels, that's pretty incredible for that price. Like, and they look pretty good. They claim to be a 23mm internal. Let's see if that's true. I'm sure it will be. I have found actually some wheels not to line up with what they say. This might be a bit awkward to do on camera. Yeah, 23.8, so nearly a 24mm internal there. A really nice wide hooked profile, and they've got proper pronounced hooks on there. So I can't really show it on camera very well, but the hooks are quite deep. Some of these wheels, especially the really light ones, the hooks aren't very pronounced, so that's quite nice. And yeah, they feel, I was actually quite shocked how light they are, because they don't feel like an ultra lightweight set of wheels. Sometimes you pick up some wheels and you're like, these feel like a bit of polystyrene, but these feel pretty solid. And yeah, they've got a decent number of spokes on there as well. The classic ratchet-free hub. And it's not too obnoxiously loud there. And yeah, I think these are, what are these depth-wise? What are we looking at? Yeah, they're 50 mils. So they're 50 mil rim depth, which is pretty nice there. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think. But they're quite smart. Centerlock disc. You can get them with either through axle or quick release hubs. You can tell I'm getting, you can tell it's late here in the UK, and yeah, Centerlock disc rotors as well. I'm really excited to give them a go, because I think these could be an awesome option. You know, if you're trying to do a £1,000 road build, which I might be thinking about doing at some point, an all AliExpress £1,000 road bike at some point. So yeah, these could be a really good option for that. I have tried the RYET wheels as well. I know they're another good option. And if you watch my gravel bike build last summer, you'll know I used the RYET wheels there. External width, I can measure them up for you. I think they claim 32. And oh, I'm getting 30 on the calipers, or 30.6 on there. So there you go. I don't know how well that's going to focus on the camera. But yeah, so I think they'd be pretty optimal on a 28mm tyre. Maybe you'd be all right with a 30 on there as well. But yeah, especially if you're upgrading an old bike and you're not going to be running super wide tyres, a 23 internal is quite nice. If you go any wider than that, often tyres can blow up a bit too wide. Yeah, 23.8 internal, round it to 24. They do claim 23 on the spec sheet, but yeah, I got the calipers on there and it was looking more like 24. Which I think honestly is one of the best sort of sweet spots for internal rim width, unless you're going for gravel. For gravel, I want way wider, but for road use, really, really good. Yeah, Q&A's sort of been going as we've been going. If anyone's got any questions, keep firing them. Doesn't have to be to do with AliExpress products. It could be anything to do with the channel. Happy to answer as long as it's reasonable. Yeah. Yes, I've just seen there. My comment about computer science degree explains the servers you saw in one of my old videos. Yeah, I have got a bit of home lab stuff going on. Not massive, but I do like to play around with that sort of stuff. It's what I waste all my money on. Recommendations for rim brakes. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a, there's not as much stuff out there anymore, unfortunately. And Yeah, the only ones I've really used, I've used the Elite Wheels Edge and I really quite like them. They're pretty light, but there doesn't seem to be many ultralight rim options unless you're going for, you know, super boutique brands. But if anyone does know of any good rim brake options, let me know, because I'm a massive fan of rim brakes, especially for really cheap builds and for hill climb racing. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be tons out there. Yeah, right. I've still got a few more things to go. We're going to have a look at a slightly smaller product now and a slightly cheaper one. And this is a little top tube bag. Now, what I liked about this one, you know, top tube bag's a bit boring, is this one allows you, and it's by a brand called West Biking. I will link it in the chat. Here we go. Sorry, it just takes me a second. How long does it take for an AliExpress product to get to the UK? Well, depends. Usually, if it's something small, a week. If it's something big like a set of wheels, it can be a bit longer just because the logistics takes longer. I mean, most things these days are only a couple of weeks usually. Things aren't dead long. But yeah, this is your top tube bag. It's supposed to be waterproof. They're about £11.50, so just over a tenner. And what I really like about this is when you get them gravel bikes with a mount on the top, on your top tube, you get your little bolts on there. I've never found a cheap, at least, top tube bag that mounts on them. But this can be mounted with bolts straight into the top tube, which is really quite nice. And it does also come with some little fabric straps as well, Velcro straps, if you need it, if you don't have, like, if you don't have the bolts on your bike. But it comes with a little bag of bolts, so you can mount that directly onto your bike, which is really nice because the amount of gravel bikes that have these bolts and they end up just getting in the way because so many of these top tube bags don't have the bolt mounts. If you have a look inside the bag, you should be able to see there's little mounting holes, so you can put the bolt straight through there, and there's plenty of different holes at different spacings, so you should be able to get ones that do work with your frame, and it seems to be quite nice and reinforced underneath. I'm actually not sure if it's a standard spacing or whether it's just one you're going to have to play around with. Core 50mm wheels, are you still happy with them? Yeah, from all the riding I've done, I've not had any problems. I'm quite a light rider, so, you know, realistically, I'm possibly not the most rigorous durability test compared to other people, but from all the riding I've done, I've probably put a good sort of probably nearly 1,000 kilometers in on them now, and I've not had any problems there. Am I into TT bikes? Well, actually, funny to say that, one of the products that we were trying to get sorted for the stream, it didn't work out in the end, was the L2 TT group set. And that was the one I was gutted that it didn't work out. We just couldn't get the logistics in time for the stream. But I definitely intend to get my hands on either the L2 or the wheel top TT group set at some point, because I do want to. I've done quite a few road bike TTs, but me being a bit of a bike nerd does want to give a TT bike a go and just see, you know, I'm British, we do 10-mile time trials. I'd love to try and go under 20 minutes on a Club 10 at some point, but I don't think I've got the fitness to be doing that on a road bike. However, on a TT bike, I reckon I could do it. So yeah, I will one day be looking at TT stuff, but obviously TT stuff is more expensive and it is a bit of a more niche market, so hence why it's a little bit lower down the priority queue at the minute. And it probably won't be anytime soon because I have got a lot of other content planned. You know, I've got a pretty mad busy summer with tons of both racing and bike building kind of content, trying to juggle both of them together. Experience with mechanical disc brakes. I have tried the Z-Race hybrid mechanical calipers off AliExpress, and I have found them to be pretty good. I haven't used them loads just because of how cheap these hydraulic group sets are now. You know, a set of these hybrid calipers is probably about 40-50 quid. I think they might be maybe more like 30 to 40 at times, but you can get these L2 group sets now for a gravel one, 110, 120 quid for GR9, and I've even seen the GRT, which is the 12-speed one, really cheap as well now. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm struggling to even see the point of having mechanical discs. Maybe for a touring bike or something where you don't want to have to deal with brake bleeding, it might be worth it. But at that point, I'd probably be using fully mechanical calipers as well. So these sort of hybrid calipers are starting to, just because of how cheap proper hydraulics have got, to be losing a bit of the mark, like to losing a bit of their point almost. Any spokes are touching. Yeah, they are touching on the wheel set. I mean, I haven't really ever had that problem. I'll have to give them a ride and see how they go. I mean, this is all just first impressions. These aren't things I've been testing. I will have to give them a go and see how they ride. I've never had a problem. I mean, carbon spokes, absolutely, you do not want carbon spokes touching because they can like really wear each other away. But with steel spokes, a lot of steel spoke wheels are touching. I mean, I'm not a wheel builder. I don't want to pretend to know a ton about wheel construction with spokes, but I haven't ever had an issue with spokes rubbing and making noises. L2 has a new EGR group. Heard anything new about that? Well, funny you say that. I had a box turn up the other day that I've just bought. It's just started popping up on AliExpress. You can get a fully wireless gravel group set from L2 now. And yes, it is sat on the side over there. Not part of this stream, but I have just got my hands on it and I will be doing a full review about that. It might take me a while to get that properly tested. I do want to do it justice, but best bang for your buck gravel frame. Well, I haven't used loads of cheap gravel frames, but I love that light carbon I've bought. I think that was about 600 quid it's worked out once you paid for all the posting and stuff. It's really, really smart. But yeah, one I really want to try at some point is RYET on AliExpress sell a gravel frame that looks pretty smart. It looks quite a similar sort of design to that light carbon. So I do want to get my hands on it at some point. So that is one I'm going to be looking out for some good deals on myself and see if I can get it. But I'm just struggling to justify having another gravel bike at the minute. I've got too many bikes in the garage. I keep getting told off. I really am the worst at N+1 in the world. So yeah, I don't want to keep growing my fleet too much at the moment. Right, we've got a couple more things to talk about. This next one, I mean, I might have to be a bit creative with the camera for this one because it is a very, very heavy box. So I'm going to try and get the camera in a way that I can keep the box mostly on the floor. Now, this might look a little bit awkward. So let's see if this is bright enough. You can see how much of a tip it is in here now that I've got products littered everywhere. And this is I've already got one of these, but this is a Think Rider Turbo, but they have updated the design. And this is what I was quite interested to show. They have now changed it to have folding legs, which is something I'm quite excited to see. And the reason I'm finding this quite exciting is because obviously turbos are big clunky things, but I do travel to quite a lot of hill climb races, and if you go to any hill climb races, you'll often see people warming up on turbos, and trying to fit a turbo with big static legs in the back of your car driving to a race along with a bike can be a bit difficult. So if you've got folding legs on there, it should in theory make it a lot easier. And now this one, whilst it's not going to be very easy to show, oh, well, that's a shame. I thought I'd asked for the one with the folding legs. Apparently I didn't. Apparently I've not got the folding legs one. But they do make it with folding legs, so that's a shame. I've got the old static leg version, but they make it now in folding legs, so I'm going to have to look into getting one with the folding legs at some point. But I guess it's easy to unbolt the legs if you need to. I mean, direct drive turbos are just so cheap now, which is awesome, especially with some of these AliExpress ones. You know, it makes life so much cheaper. It wasn't that long ago that to get a turbo, especially if you wanted a direct drive, talking about 500 quid, and you know, for the price of these, currently you can get that Think Rider for just £276, or in the US $300 or $298, which is just mind-blowing for these sort of, I mean, I paid, it was, I think 2021, I bought an Elite Diretto and I paid nearly, I think 600 quid for it. I know it was post-COVID when turbos were crazy like gold dust, but yeah, they have come down in price so much since then. Let's have a look. Has anyone got any other questions? Someone just said wheel top is better than L2. They've had both. I'd choose wheel top any day. So funny you may say that, but the final thing I've got for the stream today, and now I would have liked to show you a little bit more about that turbo. Actually, I will just say that turbo, they are really quite good, and I found that the resistance is awesome. You can really crack out a lot of resistance, and to the point where, you know, when you're doing, I think on Zwift now they've got hard not pass, and when you're doing climbs like that, it can get really, really, really good torque, and it does feel pretty good. And what's nice about the Think Rider Turbo, a lot of the cheap turbos unfortunately don't support Zwift's virtual shifting protocol, and this Think Rider doesn't support it either. But what's nice about it is they sell their own little virtual shift click device, so it completely bypasses Zwift and just directly communicates with the turbo. And I think they're only about 15 quid. So on the turbo, you mount what looks like a Zwift cog, and then you just got a little rubber band thing that goes on your handlebars. So it just directly does virtual shifting. So no matter what platform you're on, whether you're Zwift, Ruby, Trainer, Road, if that still exists, or I guess My Whoosh, it should just work without needing software support, which is obviously a big criticism with the sort of smart trainer industry at the minute is Zwift are trying to really lock things down. I know with buying Ruby, it's changed things a little bit, but it's quite nice when things are handled completely away from Zwift at times. Anything else people are talking about? The Gen 3 stuff from L2 is much better than the old versions. I mean, I never tried the old stuff, but I've seen, you know, as you probably imagine, I've watched a lot of Trace Velo's videos over the years, and I've seen his sort of issues with the old stuff. I have had a bit of a problem with my L2 on my road bike, actually, and I have managed to brick the front mech. I think it's completely my fault. My app crashed while I was doing a firmware update, so I do need to get a new one, and I have been dealing with L2 at the minute trying to get a replacement. But yeah, there are still teething problems with these group sets. So how quiet are they compared to the Diretto? I think these ones are quieter. This is quite, I've used a few of the other, I've used some of the Psych Plus turbos and a few other ones. These newer direct drive turbos definitely are quieter, to the point where the noise of your drivetrain is way louder than the noise the actual turbo makes. So, you know, keep your chain clean and it'll be nice and quiet. But yeah, they're so quiet now, it's not even something to consider compared to years ago. I had a wheel-on turbo, and I remember it was when I was at university, and in my student house, it literally sounded like a jet engine taking off, to the point where I had to be mindful of what time of day I was using it, so I didn't wind everyone else in the house up. And yeah, so on to the final product. We've got about 15 minutes of the stream left, and this is quite a big one, and I have made an absolute mess in here, but this is one I'm really excited to look at before I trip over everything. And funny people were mentioning wheel top, but I have got a road group set. Now, I have been using wheel top on my gravel bike, so I used it at the Gralloch, and I've used it in the Dirty Reaver. And whilst it's not hard to set up, but it does require, because, and I've said this in my L2 review as well, because they are so good in that they allow, I'm trying to get my words together now, they allow you to customize so much stuff. It's almost a blessing and a curse in a way, because you can change every setting you can imagine. You know, you can choose how many speeds you want to run, and Wheeltop actually allow more customization than L2 on that. But obviously it does mean that if you aren't the most experienced bike builder in the world, you can change almost too many settings and create some problems. But Do I have any opinions on the Z-Race power meter? I haven't tried one. I imagine from what I've seen, most of these cheap power meters are kind of all the same in the regards that they mostly seem to have this same drift issue. So I would imagine it's probably quite similar to the Think Rider, but I think the Think Rider's a little bit cheaper, so I'd probably stick with that. And I don't know who makes the Z-Race one. I doubt they make it themselves, so I'd probably stick with the bigger brands there. The wheel top shifters, ergonomics of these wheel top shifters I'm about to show you, I genuinely love them. I found them so comfortable, and I'll just get one out of the box now. I mean, these came out, I think, before SRAM changed their hood designs, but they have got a really similar design to SRAM. Now, they are nowhere near as premium feeling as a SRAM E1 shifter, but they have like the longer profile on the top and quite a small sort of bump at the end of the hood. So if you have a look, and I find them really quite comfortable in the hand. Yeah, this is this hand. And this is actually the carbon version. So on my gravel bike currently, I've got the aluminium version, but this is the sort of pro carbon version. So it's a bit lighter. And whilst the only thing is the hood rubbers aren't super slick on them, for the price, I think they are pretty good. And I really find them comfortable when racing. And yeah, I've raced a fair bit of gravel on these now and found them really comfy. So they have two buttons on, I think, both shifters for the road version. Let's find out. Yes, so there's there's one button on the left shifter and two on the right. So it uses a toggle style front mech shift, and it uses a sort of standard one button up, one button down on the rear. I'm just going to link this in the chat as well. I keep forgetting about that. So let me just get the link for that. And this can be had in the version I've got for about £590. So this is not a cheap product, but I have got the top of the line version. There are some lower end versions with like slightly, where you can get aluminium shifters to start with, which saves you a bit of money, obviously costing a bit of weight. I've got the oversized pulley wheel, and there's some cheaper brake versions. They make several different brake caliper versions, so you can choose what to use there. And it is $640 in the US. So those of you in the US are getting a bit of a better deal than us Brits at the minute. But yeah, I better get on to having a look at the rest of this because I've made a huge mess. So there were your shifters. And I do like the finish, actually. I don't know how well that comes across on camera on the carbon there. They do feel pretty light. I will get it all on the scales once I've got everything out of the box. And then we have got, and now this is something I haven't used from Wheeltop before. Obviously, I've used their shifters, but I haven't used a road group set. So we've got a front mech. And now Wheeltop is a true wireless group set system. So both the mechs have their own batteries built in. So obviously, they are a little bit chunkier than like an L2 mech, or I guess a Shimano mech, but it is a really nice sort of black cage on there. It does feel pretty premium, I have to say, and the charger is the same as it is on the 1x version. So it's just a magnetic pin charger that goes on there with a little waterproof cover on it. And then the rear mech, I've got the funky one. I've got the one with the super bling oversized pulley wheel there. I've never seen, I mean, I guess that's supposed to be ceramic. I would assume that's a ceramic bearing. We'll see how long that lasts. I know people have opinions on ceramic bearings, but they are very nice fidget toys to spin when they're brand new. You know, they spin forever. Who knows how long they'll last, but yeah, a bit funky having that like wild sort of see-through pulley wheel there. Whether that makes any performance difference, I don't know, but it's a little bit over the top there. And yeah, that's your rear mech. Then other things you get, little charger in the box, Nike. And you actually get two of these, I guess because it's got two mechs, two chargers. You can charge them both at once if you want to. And then the brakes these came with their sort of Pro Edition brakes, which are a really smart silver one-piece caliper there. I think these are pre-filled because they've got a brake line attached with a little screw threaded port on the end, and and the barb inserted. And they come with some nice thinned brake pads that you can see there. And these feel really well made. They are yes, they are a one-piece caliper, so that should be nice and good for performance. But yeah, it looks really, really smart there. I think it's about time I get these on the scales. So this is going to be a bit of a juggling act to try and fit all this on the scales. But we'll start with the shifters. Now, I can't remember what the aluminium versions weigh in at, because I did obviously use them in my gravel build that I have been running at the minute. So the carbon shifters, one shifter 216, for both shifters 430 grams. That's pretty light. You know, we're not a million miles off the sort of weights of Shimano. I'm trying to remember what my Dura-Ace shifters are. Actually, I've got a set of Dura-Ace shifters right here. Let's see. Compared to a Dura-Ace shifter then, so a single Dura-Ace shifter, I mean, this is not a fair comparison at all because these cost an absolute fortune. A single Dura-Ace shifter, zero the scales, 190 grams. So you're talking just 25 grams heavier than Dura-Ace. Like, that's not bad. That's really not bad for something that's probably about a quarter of the price. Yeah, you can't complain. Then onto the brakes. Obviously, these are pre-filled, so that will add to the weight a little bit. So I've got one brake here. I have taken a little spacer out. Oh. Yeah, this is a bit of a pain to fit on. 130 grams. And the other one, the only difference will be the length of the brake line on it. You're looking at 147, so that's the rear. It's just got a slightly longer line on it. If we take a look at the rear mech, and now obviously this is the one with the fancy pulley wheel on it, which will be heavier despite being a carbon cage. We have got 366 grams. And for the front mech, this feels pretty light, to be honest with you, considering it's got a built-in battery. We are looking at 183.9 grams. So I have to say, whilst obviously it's not as light as Dura-Ace, it's not bad. For the money, I think it's really quite competitive there on weight, especially being the carbon version. And if you got the one without the oversized cage, which would be cheaper, I think it will be even lighter. And sorry, I didn't know shifters were this heavy. I mean, for these wireless ones, they are obviously going to weigh a fair bit there. And these, I think they probably are pre-filled with a bit of oil as well, whereas my Dura-Ace ones actually are empty. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty good. And in terms of how you can set these up, their headline feature is you can set them to, originally I think it was anywhere from 3 to 13 speed, but I have seen there's been a firmware update that allows them to go to 14, because why not, you know? So when eventually brands start making 14 speed cassettes, if you for some reason were that inclined to use 14 speed, in theory you should be able to just change a setting in the app and they'll do 14 speed, which I think is pretty cool. SRAM Rival E1 stuff is 580 altogether. I do actually have it in a box up there, SRAM E1 at the minute. I am planning to do a little bit of a video about comparing E1 to wheel top to L2 and see, you know, maybe I'll include Shimano in that, but yeah, I'm curious to see how E1 performs. But I just find the yeah, as I said, I find the ergonomics of these shifters to be super comfortable. Maybe that's just the shape of my hands. But I did the Dirty Reaver, which is a 200-kilometre gravel event on them, and I did a blooming good time at it, and I found them really comfortable. So, yeah, no complaints from me there. The only thing that's taken a bit of getting used to, I possibly would have liked it if they had both up and down on both shifters rather than having a single paddle here. But actually, this might work better for road because it's set up the same on the gravel group set when it doesn't really make sense to have the toggle shifter for the front. But on road, when you've got front mech on one hand, rear on the other, you know, on Shimano, I've got it set up where both my buttons do the front mech in the same way, so it makes more sense to have it as one paddle. Right, we have got about 5 minutes left on the stream. So If anyone's got any final questions, now is your call to get them on the chat. I am going to remind you, if you do decide to buy anything from the links today, massive thank you for AliExpress for sending me all this stuff and for sponsoring this whole project. Join the Cashback team first. It's still the pinned comment. Check if you're looking at the prices being like, oh, the prices don't seem the prices that I've said on stream. Check the description because there's all the discount codes on there. And I think if you are in the UK or the US, the UK and US specific discount codes are far better. Well, at least a decent bit better than the global one. So make sure you're using the UK or US specific codes and make sure you're using the links there because some of these products, they have negotiated a slightly better price specifically for the viewers of this stream to get. So make sure you're using the links for them in the description. Any other questions on there? How am I getting on with them Super Team wheels? Not had any problems. I've not got tons and tons of miles into them, unfortunately, because I have been racing on my yo-yos, but yeah, really, really good. And what cheap power meter would I recommend? Honestly, I mean, unless you know you are going to be pushing big sprint performances, the Think Rider works. It works at low power outputs. It's just, if you're going over 800 watts or so, it can drift. And as long as you're mindful of that, you can... I've been using it for my training and I've not had a problem. I just wouldn't use it for a sprint session. And, you know, if you did a sprint at the start of a crit, maybe it could knock it. But as long as it's for training, I would say that's not bad. Best replacement Shimano chain rings. I mean, I've found, as I said, I've used a set of Goldix ones before, the Aero ones. They weren't a 50-34, that was a 54-40, but I imagine their smaller rings will perform just as well, and they were working fine. I've used XKD's chain rings, and they were fine. I think they're made by Pro Wheel. You see their stuff all over AliExpress, and I'm going to try them Z-Race rings, but from looking at them, they look pretty decent as well. I mean, you get a set of chain rings now on AliExpress for about 20-30 quid for a double set, so... Considering that's about the same price as an inner chain ring on Shimano, I'd give it a go. What wattage do you think Rider start to drift? I mean, I don't know if it's documented. I keep saying 800 watts. That's the max power I got to, and I didn't have any drift. When you watch GP Lama's video, he was testing it, I think more like 1200 watts, and he was getting the drift. So we are talking that sort of 800,000 watt kind of range. So proper sprint territory. It's not something you're going to set off doing a hard climbing effort, for example. But if you're a heavy rider, you know, you might be more likely to hit that than a lightweight climber like myself. How's the hooded cranks been? I mean, they've actually ended up on my time at the minute, which is the bike I probably am riding the most. I rode up Hard Knock Pass on them 12 times last Thursday and they survived that. So that's about as torquey effort as you possibly can. No creaking or anything. I'm not super sensitive to flexing like cranks or bike frames, but I haven't had any problems there. I've really enjoyed using them actually, and they're just really useful for getting a bike weight down, being how light they are. And we are very, very close to half past, but I'm honestly blown away by how engaged you all were. I absolutely love it. If you want me to do any more live stuff in future, just let me know. Get active in the comments. This stream I think I'll leave it archived on there. So if anyone wants to go check it out after the fact, you should be able to get it on YouTube. But yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this and I hope you all have as well. And I've got a lot of tidying up to do because the floor, I don't know if you can see, is just mountains and mountains of boxes where I've been throwing everything on the floor after getting them out on camera. But yeah, I think with that, I think I will end it there. If you want, as I said, all the links are in the description and that will still be there after the stream ends. So check this out and thank you very much for everyone in the comments. I'll see you all soon.